Okay.
All right, go ahead and start.
This meeting, excuse me, this meeting is called to order at 8:02 a.m. I guess the first order of business would be to approve the last.
Call to order first. Sorry. Call to order, yeah.
I don't know what
Just
the
have
call
them
to
go
order
around and
is.
say their names.
Oh,
Sorry. Just
sorry.
call.
Let's do call of order, starting with Brooke, and we'll work our way down.
Brooke Beeler.
Michael McElroy.
John LaGarza.
Bo Brousseau.
Cindy Moore, Clackamas County.
Eric Sale with Northwest Technologies.
Stephen Chandler.
Perfect. Next order will be to approve last meeting's minutes. Does anyone have any objections to the minutes or any changes?
I think one thing I saw is that when the listing of who was researching different things, I thought that my name was listed on the industrial land and on the attracting business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I reached out to Cindy about that. So that's the only thing.
So you, let's see, we have industrial land, so Brooke is not on that one. I know we were kicking back and forth. We were gonna put Brooke on everything, remember?
I think
He wasn't
Brooke
here,
was-
so. So Eric on industrial land.
Well, that was one that I was already clearly on. I think I was on business recruitment, retention and expansion.
Okay, on there with Steve. Okay, all
And I
right.
thought that Brooke was on the industrial land.
Okay, I thought so too. I know we were going back and forth on the BRE, so we can note it in the minutes that you're on the BRE there. Is there any other changes, Eric?
Well, just whether Brooke is on the industrial land.
Brooke, would you like to be on the industrial land employment committee?
Sure.
Okay,
I remember the conversation that we put her on there and then the joke about her not being here, but I reached out to her about it yesterday. So I just want to make sure it's clear.
I think it's important, especially with broadband and the importance with infrastructure, the knowledge that you bring, for industrial areas. So if you don't mind. Awesome. Okay.
Awesome. Anybody have any other thing to mention about the last meeting's minutes? Perfect. We'll move to approve the minutes. All in
Yeah.
favor?
Ask for a motion to approve.
Oh, motion to approve minutes.
I motion to approve.
A second.
Perfect. All those in favor of last meeting's minutes,
Aye.
say aye.
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 All those not in favor? Perfect. Any public comment? Anybody online?
Nope, nobody.
Okay. Board welcome packet.
Okay, we have our assistant city manager here today, Elena, and she's gonna actually for the next two agenda items, kind of go through the board welcome packet and just the code of conduct for boards and commissions and code of conduct there, so.
Welcome. It is still early. I have not finished my coffee, so this might be a little slower than I usually go through this. So this outlines here the responsibilities for the EDC. This is on our website. You can read it in the code. I'm not going to go through every single point here. But basically you're to help the council and the city develop economic strategy. The council is the legislative and policymaking board of the city. So unless governed by state mandate, the council has the final approval authority. The city code outlines the authority and functions of your board, which we just kind of looked at. You cannot expend funds or obligate the city for payment without prior approval. You have a council liaison here. And you will be preparing a work plan to be discussed and approved by council. That generally happens in April for most boards, but since you guys are brand new, that'll probably happen whenever you get it done. You report quarterly to the council on your activities. And for your first meeting of the year, you should have selected a chair and vice chair. Just some general expectations. Read the packet before the meeting, arrive to the meetings on time. If you're not going to be absent, notify your staff person. And if you no longer have capacity for this board, we understand life happens. Please resign to allow somebody else to serve. This is a suggested annual timeline. You guys are brand new, so it'll be a little different, but starting next year, you'll probably kind of follow along this timeline. So in January, it's a good idea to discuss your project plans. We generally like you to set up your plans to follow the fiscal year, so it would start on July 1st. And then in February, do your budget based on your projects that you want to do in the next year. And March, you'll review and approve those plans. And then you will also review any new applicants for your board. I think everybody has like another year before they'll have board turnover, so that won't happen for another year. And then in April, you will present your project plan and your budget to city council, and generally you'll receive this same training in April. A good idea at November or December to do a year-end review, just to look at your projects, see what went well, what didn't go well, and then to think about what you want to continue or do next time. Yes.
What page is this in the packet? I was following you. And
Yes.
then I don't see this.
Oh, I sent John my general, and then I added some pages to the, so it might not be in the packet. I can send you the updated slideshow though, if you want it.
Well, yeah, whatever we need to know.
Okay, yep. So roles and responsibilities. This is probably not in your packet either. So each board elects a chair and a vice chair. The chair presides over the meetings and is responsible for communicating with the city council and your staff. You work with the staff prior to the meeting to determine the agenda, to keep the committee on track for your goals and projects for the year, and then run the meeting, keeping it on agenda and managing the interactions with the public. And if the chair is gone, the vice chair takes over those duties. You have a staff support person. They are generally responsible for managing the AV equipment, helping create and post the meeting agenda and packet. And they may also assist with background research, creating minutes. Any specific tasks for staff will be assigned by whoever their superior is. So John is a contractor. So his contract outlines what his specific tasks are. As a committee or commission, you're an advisory board and you're considered a public body under Oregon law. As a result, you must comply with open meeting laws. So notice provided for all meetings. Meetings must be open to the public, including a virtual option for attendance, and minutes must be created for each meeting. A quorum is a majority of members, and a meeting is defined anytime there is a quorum of members who deliberate on board issues. This is true even in social settings or digital communications. So please don't reply all on emails. If you do not have a quorum for a scheduled meeting, you'll have to reschedule that meeting. You can't make any decisions without a quorum. And if you you could set up work groups and subcommittees. So if you're carrying out any subcommittees, it's a good idea those not have a quorum. So then you can sit there and chat about whatever your assignment. I think you guys had talked about like industrial lands and those kind of things. So your members can talk about that and then bring that back to report at the meeting without having to follow all of the rest of the requirements. All meetings, except for emergency, should have at least 72 hours notice. I cannot imagine an emergency meeting that you would need to hold. The meetings are broadcast via Zoom and recorded for later viewing. And be careful, as I said, with emails, other communications, that can constitute a public meeting if you reply all to an email, or if you guys set up a, I don't know, text thread, that can also constitute a public meeting. Public records. Any writing in any form which relates to the business of the board is considered a public record, which includes emails, text messages, and social media posts, even if it is on your personal device or your personal email. Committee and commissioners are considered public officials and must act in accordance with Oregon's ethics laws. This prohibits you, and not just you, your business and your family's businesses and your family members from gaining or preventing a financial loss as a result of your position. So you must declare any conflicts of interest. So here's a couple little scenarios that are things that are potential conflicts and actual conflicts. So a potential conflict is something that could be of financial benefit or prevent financial harm, but it's not something that necessarily will right now. So in this example, You own property which may be impacted by a change in zoning regulations, but it's not for sale and you're not looking to develop it. So at some date, who knows when in the future, changing those zoning laws might impact you financially. That's just a potential conflict. So you still need to declare, hey, this might be a conflict for me, but it's not going to immediately result in a potential or in any financial benefit or loss. However, if that same property was for sale and changing the zoning laws would impact the value of that property, that would be an actual conflict because at that point, you stand to either gain or lose money from that transaction. So at that point, you need to declare it and abstain from any discussion or vote. Just remember you are representing the public. Keep this in mind when you discuss fellow members, because many points of view produce good policies. And then your code of conduct should be in your packet. And then I have a separate page for you to sign before you leave today. I like to say the code of conduct is just the things we learned in kindergarten, you know, be nice, be respectful, play good in the sandbox, those kind of things. If you have any questions about the code of conduct, you're welcome to bring them to us. And that is the end of my presentation.
Can you please remind me what our magic number is for a quorum? How many total members of the committee do we have so that when we're emailing, we know how many?
Yes, right now you have 8.
8 total members?
You'll have 9 when it's full. So then a
Okay.
quorum would be a majority. So for 8, that would be 5,
Okay,
right?
so less than 5 people on the email correspond.
Yes.
Thank you for that number.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Is it the capacity of the committee or the current members of the committee?
It's the current members of the committee.
And we have what, Ryan got approved to join a council.
Ryan and Scott.
So they'll
so
be here next.
They'll be there. Yep, they'll be here
2
next
additional,
meeting.
so we have up to 9, right? It's exciting.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
And then while I was here, I am meeting later with some folks from Business Oregon, and they just had some questions about if you are continuing to see impacts on supply chain that kind of have extended past COVID. So I think we all know that during COVID times, there's a lot of supply chain issues. Are we continuing to see those issues, and is it continuing to extend into your work?
Awesome.
I think
She's looking for.
I'm looking for responses.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, that's great.
If you
We're-
know,
we're-
if you've not seen.
Everything's back to normal for us
Okay.
on the construction side for materials. Overhead doors were like crazy months and months out. They're back to 4 to 6 weeks, and we've seen everything kind of come back as far as dimensional lumber and all the supplies that we're getting for construction of buildings, but.
Go ahead, Eric.
We're not seeing the inability to get product. I think the effect of some of that as far as the disruption of the job market,
Mhm.
the disruption around, labor and some things of that, those still linger.
I know in my industry, there's been a lot of product that's been discontinued, but as far as general product in the automotive industry, I think if anything, it got faster once we came back from COVID, so we haven't seen any shortfalls.
Great.
I will say it's still a common excuse for non-performance when it's not the actual issue.
Eric, is your disruption in the labor just there's not a large enough labor pool to coming back into the
Well,
workforce?
we went through the COVID process. There ended up being all kinds of money incentives, different things that had to do with unemployment. It developed some things like that, which created a different really amount of people in the available labor pool. I would say it took a number of people out of the labor market. So when you look at unemployment and things like this, I think what it did is it allowed people to find, ways or strategies to effectively not be on unemployment. Well, they might be on unemployment. They're not looking for work. So they don't show up in unemployment numbers, but they're not looking for work. They're able to kind of exit that market in some way.
Well, I think too, maybe Elena, we can, before we jump into the next topic, which really gets into the economic development strategic plan that you were kind of all working on there, is that we met with council and we got Council McRae here too, but to kind of talk about what are some interests of the council far as the EDC working on for the strategic plan again. So the strategic plan would be we really want to have some data that we can measure at 1, 5, and 10 years that we kind of talked about last time. And what they came back is really focusing on, and Elaine, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were looking at, business recruitment in the downtown and in the industrial areas, right? So how we can recruit businesses into this area. Of course, the grocery store came up in the conversation as always. And we talked about what the data showed, as far as the ability to recruit a grocery store operator, what the size would be. And then the second thing was really with an emphasis on, so kind of, downtown business recruitment with emphasis with tourism too, the industrial park, looking at recruitment for companies, with good living wage jobs out there. And then the third component was really looking at how we can build the workforce here and how we can align with the high school and the community colleges, right? So I'll put that out there because I think as we develop the strategic plan, I think thinking about like what are some, first year metrics, how we can start to align with that, some of those major goals in there. And then the 5-year and 10-year would be some interesting things to go. And then the last thing we kind of talked about is, I think thinking about a business outreach to the business community would be something to try and do to listen to what the needs are of the business, right? So that could be something for this committee to think about trying to do in the next, 3 to 4 months would be a great way to, as we're talking about workforce, like what are those needs within the workforce that you're looking for? If we're going to create some type of programs with the high school and community college, what is that? What type of trade individuals that you need from that standpoint? So, Elena, anything else, your thoughts on it?
They also discussed creating some kind of streamlining the process for businesses to get started. So helping create like a guide for new businesses, follow this XYZ so that you don't sign a lease on a place and realize that what you wanted to do is not allowed in that zone, or realize how much the fees are for building a new facility. Those are some things that people might not think about. So helping create that kind of checklist or guide for businesses.
Yeah, so Elaine and I have been, city has an older version, so we're gonna look at how we can update that. And, and I think that's important just to show like the timeline to get, your business approved out here is significantly shorter than going through like Portland and, Multnomah County and all those challenges. So I think that's an attractive incentive for businesses to look at coming in here, especially if like, oh, I can do my tenant improvement or my industrial lands from that standpoint. So.
It might be interesting when you develop that to get some input from some businesses, because otherwise it does come across as one more requirement of the government. So if we can work together on how that can be presented in a helpful way, not just another piece of paperwork that we constantly get that we have to respond to.
I think that's a great point because, Elaine and I were talking a little bit yesterday about issues, even if when you do like a business outreach, right, just at that event, just talking about like, here's the time and just walk through a couple hypotheticals with them. Right. And then getting their feedback, right. Cause here's the timeline to go through to get a tenant improvement within the city or industrial land or commercial building. I know some cities that we've worked with, the plan check is 3, 2, 1. So if you submit your plans, first reviews in 3 weeks, second reviews 2 weeks, last reviews 1 week, right? So guaranteeing to the client coming in, those response times are important. If you submit, one of the challenges in the larger cities is like Portland is, it kind of just goes into a black hole and you don't know when you're going to get your plans back, right? So I think really having that pathway and for the business folks to be able to provide some input and say, hey, or to know that and share that wisdom, like your point there, that could be a great conversation to bring awareness, or if there's some things that they see that's a challenge, right? So cooperative working with the city and what's reasonable, like for a city this size, which does an exceptional job. I mean, I come on the staff, but then having that, I think when we bring businesses that are looking to come into our area, here's your flyer and here's what, but this has been vetted out by the community too, so.
I think there's a huge benefit to that, having a deadline or a timeline that the city's committed to meeting for a new business that's growing faster maybe than expected and needs to get into a new space very quickly. If you let them know that if you come into the city and you bring your plans and we're gonna have it done guaranteed within 90 days. Something like that would be, I mean, amazing for commercial projects in the industrial park, especially if they're looking at an option for a land that's twice the price in Portland, gonna take them 3 years to get the project going as opposed to something that's a lot cheaper to move into out here, and they're gonna be able to get into it 2 years earlier and the construction be done. I think there's a huge benefit to that when you're attracting companies that are looking to get something going quick.
Do we have any other cities in the region that kind of are an example of this that we can kind of follow, or
As far as for the timeline,
recruitment and attracting businesses and the whole timeline? I'm just curious because I mean, we could redesign the wheel, or we can just kind of mimic or see what they're doing, kind of follow suit.
the system that we have, I mean, the planning department here for that specific thing I was mentioning is already doing that and overachieving. I mean, a lot of that stuff is happening in like 6 to 8 weeks, but you just want to find a number that you could commit to that you're comfortable with. So even if you added a couple more, even if you said 4 more weeks on top of that to give them some buffer and they were committed to meeting a 12-week timeline, there'd be a huge benefit to that. I just letting it be known. I don't think a lot of people understand how quick things are going out here is kind of what I was wanting to do, is just let people
But you
know.
did raise an
efficient.
interesting point though, like the city of Gresham for a while, and I'd have to check and see if they have it current, but it was like 66 days. And it was more of like a marketing, but also implementation of that deliverable from the city's perspective, but it did give the businesses some perspective. And what it did for other communities is kind of raise that bar and say, oh, Gresham's doing them in 66 days or whatever that was at the time. And so
Yeah.
there is some co-opetition between communities to try and expedite permits as quickly as possible. But the city of Gresham model might be one to look at as an option. For contract services, is everything in-house, planning and building for Esticated now?
We contract out the building to Northwest Code Pros, but there's somebody here in City Hall 3 days a week for that.
Got it. Is there any county responsibility in design review at this point?
No, not unless, so if it aligns a county road. So, you know, if you're working on something that's a county road,
What
then you're gonna,
Fire going through the county?
it does have to go through the fire department too. Yeah.
So that's
That's not
something
county,
of clarity that
that's
would be helpful
Esticated.
because
That's
we
good.
end up with requirements that have to do with the state fire marshal,
Yeah.
the county fire marshal, and the Estacada fire marshal. And they're not in agreement.
Yeah.
So that's been one of the biggest challenges in operation, getting things going, all the way down to like, does an office that's built have to have a sprinkler added to it if it's in the middle of the shop floor? And so it's these things that people have no idea
Mhm.
that they're gonna run into, that all of a sudden it's a different interpretation that costs thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So,
I've heard that feedback from several businesses in the industrial area
yeah.
dealing with the
Yeah,
fire
and even
department.
some new ones that are coming on.
Yeah,
and
I
looking at
think,
Planning.
I think it'd be great to, get, as we work on this timeline here maybe we have a meeting where maybe we even try to pull off the next meeting is have, Estacada Fire, the county fire and the state, just have their plan check folks in the room and say, look, we want to develop a clear pathway. So when an industrial user comes in, they know exactly what it is, or if I'm going to come into the downtown too, right? And right now we have 3 different entities kind of going like this, and so it's like what role you're in and where you're working at, and have a really clear, so when we give a packet to someone that comes in, it's like, here's what I need to do for a sprinkler system.
Does the city have the authority to protect me and tell me which organization I am supposed to work with? Like who's in charge? Like who is the one that is the lead?
Who's the final approval on the inspection?
Which one of those different organizations is the one that supersedes the other?
As far as like the fire.
If
Or-
I
or-
tell you something and Cindy tells you something
Mhm.
and Bo tells you something, I need the city to tell me which one I listen to.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, nobody would be telling you contradictory information, but the city has to follow state fire code. So if the fire marshal says something, and even if our planner says, well, that it doesn't violate our code, the state fire code would supersede the city's code. Yeah, government is never.
So am I?
I
supposed
like-
to-
I like-
am
I would
supposed to tell
wish.
them that?
Are you supposed to tell them?
It is not in my best interest to argue that.
No, no, what we could, I mean, I can't say city staff is going to be the final say, but I can say that city staff will help you. So if you get something that's contradictory information, feel free to come back to, if you were working with Alan, say in planning, and say, hey, I've got this from Northwest Code Pros and then this from the fire marshal, and these contradict, and we can be the person to help like guide it through.
So for me, it's that, so we could be sitting here and one could walk in the door
Mhm.
and say, I'm gonna inspect and require this. Tomorrow, the other one walks in the door,
Yeah.
says, I want it like this. The next day, another one walks in the door and says, I want that.
Ideally, those issues would have been kind of ironed out in the pre-app. So before you move forward, we look at your plans and we'll have a pre-app meeting, and then the fire marshal will be at that pre-app and they'll review your plans, and then Northwest Code Pros will be and review your plans, so that at that point we'd be able to say, hey, the fire marshal needs this, the state building code for commercial entities needs this, the city code says this.
Maybe we can come back and work on this a little bit, because this is like after existence. This is like not in planning or code. This is after that's all been approved. This is just like in a daily business operation, it comes up. And so these are the unknowns that are
Mhm.
different, that are problematic past the initial part. So maybe as we get into that, maybe we can find some ways to provide some clarity or backing.
Yeah, I think it's important. Maybe we'll just put on the agenda for next week or next month to, kind of vet out a little bit more, because I think you just really need to have a clear pathway going through, but then also as you continue operations, right? If you do some changes in your industrial center, if it impacts and the state fire marshal comes out, so just, I think having them come and just explaining kind of the concerns and then talking about how we can build a couple, a couple exhibits, like if you're an industrial user, here's, and if you're using these type of products or you're gonna do this, welding machinery, would be helpful from that standpoint.
When we get there, I can bring some examples, so it'll make some more sense. I think.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Lena, anything else you think from city council? Did we? Okay,
Well, awesome. I think we all appreciate the city council's input and what they expect of us. I think it helps us outline what we kind of spoke about in our first meeting. So that's kind of relieving that we're all on the same page. And that spools us right into getting back on our strategic plan. So I know we all broke apart. We all broke apart and we all had our assignments on what we were going to work on and what we were going to start looking at. So I think now is probably a good time to start reporting on where we got and what we learned and some of our thoughts and ideas on them. I think the first one, my computer is not going to work on me. I know it was
industrial land employment.
industrial land,
Mhm.
and that was Brooke and Cindy,
Brooke and Eric.
Brooke and Eric.
I've got you here.
Let's put this thing back up. Oh, perfect. Eric, do you have any notes on industrial land and employment? I know you were
Yeah.
pretty passionate about that one.
Yeah, and I think I contacted Brooke yesterday because she wasn't on there, wasn't involved, so I gave her kind of a heads up of what we talked a little bit. But I went through and there was an assessment of existing land that was part of that process. And so the different kinds of land exist, and we kind of need to know what's finished buildable and what's for future potential development. When we talk about employment opportunities, we kind of need to see like a different level. It's hard to put them in levels, but level 1, 2, and 3. So if you looked in an industrial environment or many businesses, in a sense, you can look at the number of people that exist inside of the walls. And different businesses have different wages, and we need to take those and develop a reverse living wage type of a thing to say, what is Estacada trying to make a living wage? When I go over to Madras, I see houses for sale, many houses being developed, and they would range new houses from $300,000 all the way up into $1 million. When I look in Estacada, what the new houses really are going for is really about $480,000, somewhere around that stage. So when we look into, like, say, what we're gonna hope to get out of the industrial park, every business, you could look like at a triangle, and the bottom part of the triangle is the biggest part of the triangle if you sliced it. And that's gonna be most of the job wages that are doing more of the maybe physical work, more of the hands-on work. And they might be at a certain wage that accommodates that. As you move up, there's a level of people that manage that work. As you move up, there's a level of people that develop systems for that work. Then there's a level of people that integrate those systems. And then there's people for strategy and leadership. The wages follow those things. So if we attach wages in an industrial environment to those slices, we would see all of a sudden which slice actually applies to a $480,000 house to afford. That slice is probably for an industrial type of environment, it may be 4 to 6% of the employees in that pie. If what we're looking for is jobs that support the $480,000 house, you would have to take 4% of the 1,400 approved housing starts. 4% of that, if you were going to fill those 1,400 at 4%, it's going to take 66,000 industrial jobs to yield 4% of them that would be able to afford that kind of a house. So I think what we have here is we're hoping to match jobs in this sector to pay for these houses that we already approved. This is not going to happen through the industrial environment. Those level of jobs are people that are working a certain job that sought a place to live outside of where they worked, outside of town, and bought that house. It's not a match as far as what we design. We have to design housing that matches, say, a $300,000 house, so that people working in the industrial scheme can actually afford to live here. So for us, there is a certain percentage of people that have affordable housing have found it, whether it's through generations, families, different ways that they have it. And so in that industrial area, we will all fight in the same pool for that group of people that can afford to live here. The other ones are transporting from other places to here. So when we say, hey, we want to provide this and make this bigger, there has to be a place for them to live. And when we talk about housing that might be, there's housing that's available and it has income ranges and stuff like that, we're talking about availability in the 36 units or the possible 100 units that might be made. So they kind of exist around, but not in the quantity that's going to support the level of what's been made. So does that make sense that what we've approved and built doesn't match? There's so much inventory at that price level that it does not match our ability to do that. But if zoning was to put multifamily houses, maybe smaller lots that were houses of 1,000 to 1,200 square feet, more apartment type of things, that would be great. My fear is the amount of this that it takes to support the prices of houses that we have further exacerbates the city infrastructure here that supports that. So it's a hard thing to look at that and say, well, how do we attract businesses? We have to say, okay, well, what is here? How will they be successful? What can we do about that? We don't have office buildings allowed in the industrial areas, so it's not like we can just take and put a realty office or something else out there that would really have a certain band only of income. So we have to kind of step back and say, we have inventory of land for this kind of thing. We have inventory of houses for this kind of thing, but they're different. And so, as we look at what we're trying to approve and in the zoning that follows that, I think bringing those into alignment is great. Otherwise, it's kind of like we talk incessantly about the grocery store, but are yet to have a piece of property that we would say it should go on, should we have that opportunity. So that's, I see the land, I see the ability of the city to work with that company that's coming in, but there isn't, the employee part is hard. So when we talk about training and systems and things like that, that's really important too. But we have to just think of the actual physical family. How do and we talk about the word living wage a lot, but how do we make the living wage match the industry that's here? So that's that's kind of an overview of this, and I've found different housing prices in different cities and communities, and look at our community compared to say a Sandy or a Malala or a Madras, and see the different infrastructure. We have challenges in our city because the core downtown that we focus on all the time is surrounded by a bluff and it's landlocked, and it just doesn't have the inventory for the things that we would like to see happen. So until incentive happens to say, hey, how do we get ODOT to move to the industrial park? What incentivizes them to do that? Or in an industrial area, an industrial company that's been here for years and years, how do we say, hey, how do we incentivize to say, hey, now the city's grown, we started an industrial park, can we incentivize you to move from the city core to the industrial park? That's, we have desires, but until we actually make space and make those things match, it's just going to be a constant rehashing of the same information with wanting to achieve certain results, but not having the groundwork to get there. So,
No, that's good, Eric. That's really good. Do you have any idea besides, capturing some underutilized or misused land? Do you have any other ideas on where multifamily can go?
I think it's tough. I know there's a development that's slated that's to start by the Red Fox around there for some.
So 100-unit apartment complex.
Yeah, so that's a start for sure. And I don't know. This is not a solution, but we have these 1,400 housing plots slated. And so I don't know what you can even do with that. But if in the planning, there was the ability to change the lot size, change the approved house size, something to allow some of those to actually be built in this range.
So we have, as part of that 1,400, those are just lots. And some of those lots are multifamily that has been approved. So depending on the density of how those get built out, it's between 500 to about 1,300 units that are approved through planning through multifamily. The problem is, it is not, at least from what we heard from developers, it's not financially feasible to build those multifamily units right now. That it's just not giving them the return on investment that it is with the single family houses.
Would it
And-
be better would it be more interesting to not approve so many single families?
We
to
can't,
make the choice?
we can't. The way the state land use laws say is that if they meet the criteria that are set in the code, we cannot not approve them. We have to approve them, or else it's gonna go before the state. We could just get sued. And then we just end up having to approve them anyways.
And that multifamily is allowed there's all North City residential running up the first 200 feet of Eagle Creek Road. Anything that sells going from like out towards River Mill Road out that way, the first 200 feet, that's all multifamily, high density housing. If any of that redevelops, the ability to put apartments in Estacada is there. It's just that developers the market hasn't created the demand for it yet. So it's market driven, it's not that the city's restricting that type of housing at all. And you got to be real careful about, there's other impacts other than just bringing labor in for businesses into the community. When you bring large amounts of multifamily housing, and there's other results from that other than just bringing labor there. I mean, you're going to have a lot of other issues in the city too. If you have popping up like Malala's got all these brand new apartment complexes, all that's going to get filled up and that's going to get flooded in. A lot of kids running into their school systems. Our school system's already pretty taxed. And so bringing in 1,000 apartment units, I don't know if that'd be very beneficial for the city. And those numbers, bringing it in as the market, as the demand's there, I could see the benefit for that, but.
So I see the problem. I
Yeah.
mean, we have a problem and we have excuses for why it's not there. So we can't look for one thing and not provide the other thing. So I don't know, that's just what I find.
Well, I think that, you know, for the thinking, you know, how we're gonna create this strategic plan here, right? I think one of the things I hear is we need to kind of identify the living wage job or those job ranges. So I think, you know, for our first year, you know, really having what we feel is esticated as living wage job, right? So I think that would be a great goal for staff to work on and bring back and share that with the group here and see if we agree with it. And then what I'm hearing from the group here is that we all recognize workforce housing is important. What's the demand that we need to think about starting with, right? Incrementally, we know we can't do 1,000 units, but if we could start to say, we could bring on 100 units or you know, over the next 5 years, you could bring on X number of units that would kind of see back into some number there, right? So then that way we realize what workforce housing is that meets that living wage job. It's an affordable apartment that's, you know, for the workers in the community here. And then we're kind of, then when a developer comes in, like say like IE who did all the apartments out in Malala, they see there's a pathway for them and a demand for them for workforce housing, right? And I think identifying, to your point, could be even within the strategic plan, could be like a 5-year goal would be able to move ODOT, right? So a goal could be, how could that be acquired or relocate them to the industrial park and bring in some, you know, apartments in that area, just for an example, right? So that would help your downtown. It'd also help, you know, the workforce out in the industrial park, right? Or just thinking how those two synergies could play in there. So
Yeah, I think that would be great, and just kind of put this on the map and plan towards it. Because, you know, now we have 100-unit RV park, long-term RV park that showed up in the industrial park. So without, I mean, figuring out the plan of how it's created and what it looks like. Otherwise, we end up with, you know, pockets of ideas because people do things independently, which is great because something happens. But I don't know how to get it as part of the.
I
grand
think,
plan.
you know, just looking at what the exponential growth for workforce housing that you would probably want to look at, you know, over 5 years, you know, let's say if industrial park comes on with, you know, X amount of businesses, how much, you know, what is that demand that we could set as a goal to try and recruit or attract or find ways we may not hit it, but at least there's a pathway for the effort to try, right? You're still going to have probably people transporting, coming back and forth to the area, but at least it sets it as a strategic plan. In 5 years, we want to try and have, you know, 250 workforce units here, right? And maybe be able to identify some locations where you could bring that in there, right?
Yeah, and we've long known that one of the challenges is as families grow and kids go through high school here, go to college, there is not an affordable place for them to come back to. So we lose them. So
Yeah.
there's not
Different types
that
of-
next step.
Yeah.
I've heard the same feedback from seniors in the community too, that are selling larger pieces of property out and want to stay. There's not a real good place for them to move to that's affordable for that. Same reason.
Yes, I want to pick your brain real quick, McElroy. You said if, you know, we brought in immediately 1,000 units in multifamily, the infrastructure here can't support it. What are some of those challenges we face in today's infrastructure?
I don't want to say the infrastructure won't support it. So the big one's the wastewater treatment plant, which within 3 years is going to be up and running. It's at 60% engineering. So that's the ball's rolling on that. Water rights, I think we have 2.1 million gallons per day is what but we're only able to produce 1.9 right now.
We have water rights for up to 2.6 MGD, million gallons a day we can produce. at peak efficiency right now, about 1.9. I mean, in all reality, it's closer to 1.7 because, you know, nothing runs at peak efficiency.
Yeah. So I just meant, the schools was the big one. I just know that without us passing that bond, the bond failing, and I mean, they're moving in trailers popping up left, and I think they're up to like 3 of them at the elementary school now. So you can imagine if you move, there's 1,000 units of apartments come in and you got 2 kids or 1 kid per unit, that's 1,000 kids hitting our school system. And they don't even have room for the kids that we have now. And the community isn't passing a bond to create space for the kids to be there. I just, that was my biggest concern, not the infrastructure as far as
Yeah.
water and sewer and stuff like that.
No,
but
I
the
was just
distance
kind
of other things.
thinking back to the packet
Yeah.
that was provided to us in our last meeting and
Yeah.
the expected growth in the next 5 to 10 years of just the population of Estacada in general. And then we briefly touched on the infrastructure. So I was just, didn't know if
Yeah,
the city
yeah.
had plans to, you know, expect the growth and ways to mitigate it.
Oh, we're working on that. Yeah, we're working on securing more water rights, working through that process,
Yeah.
increasing the production at the water facility was like upgrading the pumps, right?
Yeah, so we're upsizing the intake pipes so they can handle more, upgrading the pumps, and some other small things just to bump it up a little. Eventually, we're gonna have to do, improvements to the water plant in order to produce that entire 2.6 MGD. That's gonna be about 13 to 15 million dollars. On top of the 50 something probably for the wastewater plant.
What is the incentive to the city that drives the continued development of the industrial park? So what's the benefit? Is it the business, the building development and then the income tax or the property tax that comes from that? What is the driver? What's the benefit to the city when that gets developed?
To the city as a government or to like the city as the population of the city?
To the city as a government?
I mean, we do get taxes when the property is developed. You know, I think for the city, there's things that are not necessarily monetary. So like having jobs where people aren't having to commute, being able to produce things that we would use in the city. Those are all things that are non-monetary values that we would like to see through the development of the industrial campus.
I'm just further trying to connect the desire and what we're willing to do to get it to happen. And Michael, you had talked last time about how Happy Valley had expanded towards, you know, like 82nd down around, you know, Jennifer down around the Safeway industrial area that really brought in those industrial areas. And I know those areas have, you know, more of a tax, property tax value in there versus the infrastructure that they use. And so that's probably maybe that correlation as far as it being a more, you know, more value of taxes with less services required. Is that kind of the ratio?
I would,
advised?
for the city services, no, not necessarily. I mean, when we, for like the school district, yeah, bringing in the businesses is not going to result in new students necessarily. But for the city, depending on the type of user, we could see some, especially industrial users come in that are very high users of city services. So they're using a lot of, let's say, water and sewer, or they're putting more vehicles on the road every day because they have a lot of deliveries or there's a lot of back and forth traffic, that would result in more use of the transportation system than we would in residential.
So earlier you had talked about not being able to regulate housing approvals.
Yeah.
When you talk about more possible sewer use or water use in the industrial area, are you saying that you would not be able to recoup the cost of that or refuse permit approval based on the lack of available services?
We could refuse permit approval based on the lack of services, and that would have to be something considerable. So when we're talking about, say, like one of these chip manufacturers, when they came to the city and were like, hey, do you have available land? They're looking at 1 to 10 MGD water and sewer alone. And we have 2.6 MGD water. So there is no way that we could handle that. We would refuse them because we would not have the services to provide for them. We charge industrial users, and depending on your meter size, you may be charged a higher rate than a residential user. I mean, a lot of the industrial users currently in the plant just have regular 3/4 inch meters, so that it's not a significant difference. But we would recoup a lot of the costs eventually. But it's still a higher burden on our system for some of those users than a single family house, or even a whole subdivision in some of these cases.
Right on. Well, to keep things moving, Brooke, do you have anything to add to this?
No.
Okay, we'll move on to downtown business development and revitalization. Cindy, would you like to speak on this first?
My notes here. Downtown business. Okay. So I sent an email to the group yesterday and copied John on it. And then thank you to Eric for chiming in as well. So for downtown business revitalization, it was Eric, me, Luke, and Brooke. Brooke, officially nice to meet you in person, by the way. Likewise. So just put a couple of ideas out for consideration on resources, some of which the city of Estacada is already engaged in, but I thought about Oregon Main Street. And I wasn't sure exactly what the current status was of the Main Street program. So just, that was the first one. So if we want to talk about that, we can.
Sure. Yeah. Estacada is an Oregon Main Street program. Everything that is inside our downtown zone is part of the Oregon Main Street program. We're not, I think they changed their levels. I think we're at an affiliated level. I'd have to go back and look because they changed how the levels are, but we're officially part of the program.
Wonderful. And that's a really good program to tap into at the state level. I know that the county, we've supported them as well. And that's something that we're looking at moving forward. For those that might not know, our Office of Economic Development at the county is in a kind of 2.0 version. We have new leadership and a new strategic plan. And so we're also very interested in how we can support our city partners in these types of initiatives that you have in place. So we'll continue to talk that through. But the Oregon Main Street program is a great resource. And I put a link in here. The other is, even though Estacada is outside of Metro, which is the regional government for Multnomah, Washington, Clackamas counties, they do have some really good resources on tools for downtown revitalization due to some of their regional studies, like for the Clackamas Town Center and some of the other regional centers. And so I put that on there as well. Again, we might not be able to tap into it directly for funding, but it might be a good kind of benchmarking example. And then the third one was on a national level, the Main Street program as well. So for downtowns, we think about, the streetscape improvements or how it relates to the industrial park, how we make those connections. And so just a couple of bullets around downtown. And I was really thinking about the industrial park, because I've spent most of my time at the county working with the businesses in the industrial park when I've had that opportunity. And one of the things that's been consistent is that connection to the downtown and how we can make sure that either from an employment perspective, the residents know about career opportunities that are out there, or even just from a commercial business to business connection standpoint. So those are the three that I had for downtown business development and revitalization.
Great. Good work.
Thanks, Cindy. Elena, on the Main Street program, is the downtown committee, is anyone running that or managing?
Yeah,
that?
it is. It goes through our downtown Estacada.
So
Commission.
downtown
Yeah.
Estacada Mission is running that right now.
Yep.
Okay, that's
Mhm.
good.
Yes,
to know.
and something also to mention, although it is kind of winding down and it sunsets at the end of 2026, is we do have an urban renewal district for our downtown zone. And so our businesses in the downtown zone can apply for grant funding through urban renewal. And we've had quite a few businesses take advantage of that.
And that's just for the downtown specifically?
That's just for the downtown
Thank you.
zone. Yes.
It expires next year.
Yeah, it expires at the end of, 2026.
Oh, I thought it was 2025.
Yeah, it's the end of 2026. I have to look at the exact month, but yeah.
And I think one of the goals of council when we did the strategic planning was to look at a potential for another urban renewal area.
Yeah, they were really interested when we were doing the annual planning, potentially looking when this sunsets, starting another urban renewal district that encompasses the mill property. They thought that'd be a great way to help get some funds to kickstart some work there.
Great, cool. Cool. Thank
Brooke, you have anything to add to that?
No.
Okay, Eric? All right, we'll go on to Business Recruitment, Retention and Expansion Program, which is Cindy and Steve. Steve, do you have anything you want to add first?
I don't have anything to report. I don't
Okay.
think we connected at all, so.
That's okay. I have just 3 bullets that
Okay.
we can talk through. One was a business survey, and I wasn't sure if there had been one done recently.
Not recently, no.
Okay, I have a couple of examples that we've used in other communities and areas. I'm happy to put those out for consideration if we wanted to take on something like that. And the second bullet was around business ambassadors, and maybe our EDC members could do joint business outreach visits. One of the things I've experienced is in going into those conversations, sometimes business owners will share more directly with other business owners than they'll share with your local governments. So hypothetically, how could we roll out an ambassador program where we're face to face with other businesses and talking through what we're doing as an EDC and how they could be a part of it? And then the third bullet was just marketing of existing programs, because we do have tools at the local level, but does everybody know about them? So whether it's a one pager when a business comes in and wants to locate, whether it's something that goes out in your utilities, just a general awareness of the tools that are available, and even just the formation of this group, just to continue to keep the word on the street.
No, it's good. It's good. Anybody else want to have anything to add to that?
How's the group feel like for one of the first year goals within the strategic plan is to do the survey? You know,
I feel like it could be helpful to help just ask the big question
Yeah.
of how can we help you and how
Mhm.
can you help the city and the area?
mhm.
And the
Okay.
city has a list of all the local businesses that we can get printed out or shared.
Yeah, we require all the businesses to sign up for a business license. So we have that information.
Be really nice if we found a way to get involved, participation in the survey other than just shooting out an email to everyone. If we could find some way to get a better response, because I know I get bombarded with emails wanting to take surveys all the time, and I just browse through them,
I think-
don't respond to many.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think,
Those-
the, one of the ways is, if you do the business outreach event, like if you did it and you have them there and they could just scan the QR code, right?
Mm,
It could be a great way, you get 50, 60 businesses in here and talk about the programs and what we're trying to do and wanting to hear from them. We could capture the survey then,
Yeah, that'd be
be,
great.
to your point, like it just comes in the mail or more junk mail or,
Yeah.
could be a way that's been.
Even have
successful.
physical ones there at the
Yeah,
meeting.
physical
it'd be
ones,
great,
yeah,
too.
could be a way to
Sure.
do that at your event would be a way
Yeah.
there, so.
And surveys don't have to be exhaustive, because I'm with you, I get them as well, and it's like, oh, 20 questions, oh, maybe tomorrow we'll get to that, and it keeps
Yeah,
getting bumped,
First
right?
another,
But what I found is that even in this business to business or this ambassador program, if y'all are having a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever and having these conversations, 5 things. Maybe we, drill it down to just 5 questions that's more conversational in nature, where we're getting that intel as an EDC, but not in a formally structured way all the time, right?
And-
There's
and
different
you're-
ways to get to different people.
Cindy, you're right too, because like your best salespeople are your existing business masters, in your community. So when you're recruiting new businesses in here, being able to talk to someone that's here is really helpful. So.
I would also suggest that you think about strategically asking some businesses, because you want to get a good range of types of businesses, and maybe you're not going to see restaurants attending this event. And so strategically reaching out and asking, so setting up the categories of who you want to reach, or however you want to set that up. You want to make sure you have different income levels. You want to make sure you have different types of businesses, whatever it is, so that you're making sure you're getting a good wide range of the businesses in the community.
I like that. That's great. Like you think about the retail, the restaurant, we want to recruit some restaurant, maybe you got a grocery store ambassador or something,
When we talk about attracting businesses, sometimes in the report, it got into saying it listed some types of businesses that seemingly were similar to businesses that were already here. So we're in the metal field, and it listed, metal manufacturers
Mhm.
ideally. But so what really might be helpful is to look at the industries and market what these industries serve. So the kind of work I do serves the next layer up. And so when I have a welding, fabrication, things like this, it goes to another place that then finishes it and puts it together, ships it off. Some big, big places. So in Estacada, we have places like us, we have some machine shops, we have different things around. We need to look at what those serve up to, not what they're just going to compete with each other on. So from a city view is looking, we call ourselves an OEM, or a provider to OEMs, which is original equipment manufacturers. So this is a strength of a core of groups that can serve a great original equipment manufacturer. So when we go look for that, like on that 50-acre lot and different stuff, we need to find that everybody serves too, not just more of doing things the same and shipping it out.
I like where you're going with this, because I think when you think about what's that ecosystem in that park, right? So I think the more we can understand that from you and the players in the park, the more we can be marketing that to and then working with the high school and the community college on fitting for that ecosystem supply in there, right? From workforce, recruitment. Yeah, that's some great points that are put in our.
Can I
strategic
just jump in
plan.
real quick? As OEM, manufacturer supplier, I was just thinking about like where I live in Faraday Hills, there's a lot of remote workers there, a lot of people in design. And I think maybe, just thought to me or came to me like perhaps we could have a city pamphlet or flyer. Did you know that in Estacada, we have this and this and this? Like, again, like you were saying, kind of an understanding of what our industrial park has capable. In semiconductor. Obviously, this is a little further than Hillsborough, but again, there's maybe I don't want to go out there. I just want to do it one-off here in an industrial park, take a look at it, have it machined, and then, keep revising. I just,
Yeah. Just a tool to let people know.
yeah,
It's often been kind of interesting if you could know, I don't know how to get this, but a cross section of the abilities of the residents. So like if you were gonna go
Get talent
look
assessment.
into
Talent
it.
assessment, they would send each.
Yeah, so if you were like thinking of getting involved in a certain area, you would kind of have an idea of what's available in your community to work with.
And I think that could be a great, we talked about last time, it could be a great goal within a strategic plan. The first year is get a talent assessment of the community, of the city, and that could be, maybe a way we can do that is working with Ryan with, right? You get in a survey out that way, we could capture a lot of information that way, might be the best way. Cindy, I'm sure has some other ideas and thoughts, but I think that would be for a strategic plan of a really good first year goals to complete that,
All right, next, we're gonna move to vacant underutilized properties. Steve, you have anything first?
I don't have anything to report on this.
Okay.
I know that we are starting to settle into this, so I'm a little bit kind of not disorganized, but just with the email and not seeing anything, it took a little while to get orderly on this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have anything yourself.
I do, there's a bunch of property all over, obviously the packet that John included in the email this week. Mentioned the RSG, and it was a little disheartening to see that. Seems like other people had tried and can't get the property, can't get them to sell or develop the property. Up there at the old mill, but there is a bunch of property. I heard again today that ODOT has that chunk of property right across from the industrial park. So I've been working, I have a friend of mine is the district manager for ODOT. So I've been kind of working with him to see if I can't get some contact info. I know it was a zoning error, but maybe it may be able to talk to the city and see if we can't zone that and bring that piece of property online. Cause I think it's a prime light industrial or even heavy industrial being that close to the mill. But I did have a question for the city, whether it's Elena or Michael. Is there a resource that's public information that if we see a property that we have then the property owner's information? That way we can contact them besides just kind of, stopping in.
You look up on, you go to the tax assessor.
Yeah.
Look
you-
up on
you can get-
CMAPs, get the tax lot number, then go to the Clackamas County Tax Assessor, put in the tax lot number. It should give you
It'll give
maybe
you
not
their-
their contact.
It'll
info,
give
but
you
it
their
should be-
mailing address.
Okay.
So it'll give you the property owner's name and mailing address. You can't get the phone number or email.
Okay. At least that'll get me going in the right direction. There's so many underutilized properties that are just growing weeds. like RSG or that ODOT property. I just didn't know the formal appropriate way to contact them to get information or start the discussion.
Sending a letter off, or, I mean, if you have, there's other like pay for services where you can put in a property name and it give you the the possible owner and their possible contact phone number, stuff like benverified.com, stuff like that
Okay.
is a good resource for researcher properties too.
Anybody else, anything to add on that one?
It may also be, are you meeting with Jeff from Business Oregon?
Yes.
Because that might also be a good connection if you're looking for people at ODOT. Because Jeff
Oh,
Hampton
yes.
is our regional business development officer.
Okay.
For Business Oregon, which is the state's economic development agency. But they also do a lot of support to coordination within other state agencies for cities and counties.
Okay.
So if you're looking for something state related, but
Yeah.
don't know where to go, Business Oregon through Jeff, if you're gonna meet with him.
Perfect. Okay. All right, anybody else? Moving on to tourism, I know Luke was passionate about that one. But he is not present today. Steve, do you have anything to add to that one?
The only thing I have to add is I did kind of brainstorm some ideas and I reached out to Melanie a little bit. One of the things is Estacada is a very well or unknown city in Oregon, right? People have heard of it, they've driven, they know about the Clackamas. And just little ways here and there, we can get people's attention or kind of get a little bit more intrigued by Estacada, bumper stickers or some maybe Sasquatch or just some type of bumper sticker that kind of says Estacada and gives like a little preview of what's out here, just to spark curiosity. And those are free advertising for Estacada. I think that eventually might help with tourism. Again, it's a very low cost item that the city could, look into. That's about it.
Does the city have a brand? Or slogan?
Elena, you want to talk?
Behind you.
Okay, yeah.
USA, right?
No,
Part of the
it's
Clackamas.
unexpected, untamed, unforgettable.
Yeah.
Yes.
You want to talk about, the city has a contractor doing some tourism.
Yeah, we have
work.
a contract with Noble Consulting and they do tourism for us and it's mostly digital tourism. So, a lot of
Right.
social media promotion and those kind of things.
Oh, and I did also reach out to Melanie. I was like, hey, we should do a Sasquatch festival or something like that. But again, we have that Oktoberfest coming up too.
Yes.
So
But I think,
Radio play over the years too. You've had some radio ads.
Yeah, we've had
Wow.
radio ads, we've had some fam tours is what they call them. So they'll have people come out who do the promotions. So the guys who come out and have like YouTube channels or whatever. And so we've done a few of those over the years too.
so Elena, are they just doing the SEO search right now, the tourism Noble?
They're not doing SEO, they're doing social media promotions
So they're
mostly.
doing social media. How about, one of the things that I've thought about is just getting some articles published in some magazines. Are they responsible for that too?
Yeah, and we've had
Okay.
we've had several of those over the years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it could be like an idea like you brought up, Stefan, is an event or thinking about like what could be an event to plan for around tourism, Maybe it
Yeah,
is.
I know the DEC is really interested in the Christmas tree capital of the world is what they're kind of looking at that as Estacada. It
Like Leavenworth.
not like not like Leavenworth. I don't think they're necessarily going that far, but kind of promoting that the holidays and that off season and that a lot of people come up here to get their Christmas trees. We do produce and ship a lot of Christmas trees in the general vicinity. It's pretty
Right
high.
now, there's really no Christmas event that takes place,
We do have a tree lighting, yeah.
but that's it.
But yeah, they're looking to kind of
So how
expand
could you
that.
expand that,
Yeah.
like with maybe horse rides or some
Yep,
other,
yeah, that's what they're looking
decorating the
into.
town or creating
Mhm.
that theming or something in that aspect there. I mean, those are kind of things that thinking about like in that off season, how are you going to support your downtown? So what do you do in December, October, Valentine's Day, is there, Independence, City Independence does a great deal where they do gift certificates for the retail merchants to get them in to come in and shop down there. So, I mean, there's different things in those slower seasons that I think could be a great conversation at your business outreach event to have those retail folks here and saying, what kind of event would be supported in You know, is it Christmas? Is it the beginning of the year, January, February, that would help keep people in our downtown and spend dollars here too, so.
All right. Outdoor business seminars, conferences and education. Cindy, your name's on this, but I can add to it too.
Sure. You want to start?
I can start, yeah. I'm excited for Ryan to join the council, or the commission, sorry, because I have a dream and aspiration to kind of help the school and the college get together and help the industry in the area. When I attended Oregon City High School, and during my time there, they had a great program going on with CCC, where as a high school student, you could walk down and take classes. And I know we touched on it during our last meeting, but it'd be really cool to have the opportunity as a high school student to take college courses, especially with the industrial area as prominent as it is in Estacada, to have connections with CCC to the industrial area and the high school where kids can go down there and take classes. So I'm excited for Ryan to be on board, and to see if he has any ideas or if this has been a thing in the past with the city of Estacada Estacada High School. And we start reaching out to CCC to see if they have any interest in the program, and a program like that too.
I think that they do have that program already.
Do they?
I'm trying to remember what it's called. And I don't know a lot about it. Obviously, Ryan will know all the ins and outs.
Yeah, it's
my-
similar to like a dual enrollment where they're able to get typically their junior, or senior year, they're able to start taking college classes.
But there's criteria
credit
to
for it.
participate in it. And they take classes. They are not at the high school. I mean, I think that the classes are either virtual or in person at the college.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
they do have a program like that.
well, cool. Maybe we see if we can't make it better and bigger.
And he's specifically looking to revamp the STEM programs at the high school, and looking for input on that. So it'd be good. Touch base with him and get up to date on all that.
It does seem like there are other opportunities at the high school, though, to partner with some of the local businesses, either in like a construction capacity or, like carpentry and things like that. I feel like we have resources in the community, but we're not in alignment with the schools to teach that skill set to our kids right now. There's some opportunities.
And that came up at the council meeting too, is looking for opportunities for kids from the community for internship programs during the summer, to get them exposed to see what they're interested in and get them fired up about something. And then that could turn right in from an internship. Okay, you're fired up about it. Well, this next year, this is a program that you can go through and get the skills needed to go into a job like that. And it flowed really well together, and you had the internships to get interest, and then you had a program that would develop the skills, and then you had a company that's willing to give them an opportunity for employment. I think it would just flow, would be
Yeah,
really well. Because
definitely.
Yeah.
Cindy?
We're on economic partners, right?
Oh, I didn't know if you had anything else to add to seminars, conferences and education.
Oh, seminars, conferences, yes, two. So I'm the president this year of our Professional Industry Association, the Oregon Economic Development Association, or OEDA. We have 2 events per year, usually a collaboration event. We've done the last 2 years around workforce investment boards and higher education, and how the connections are made there with HECDev. So OEDA is a good one. And then International Economic Development Council, or IEDC, is another one to look at. You can look at that online. They have an annual conference in the fall. In fact, next week it's happening in Denver. I'll be there for 3 days. So what we like to do at those conferences is try and pull any information that we can on behalf of our communities. So I'll be keeping an eye out as the conversation develops today and our previous meetings too, to see if there's any tools at the international level that might be supportive. So there's 2.
What was
State-
that first one you mentioned, the state level?
OEDA, Oregon Economic Development Association, or OEDA.
Um,
Bo, I'm sorry.
yes, go ahead.
I don't know how this works, but is there a way I can request excuse or to leave? Because I thought this was 8 to 9. I didn't realize it was going to be a little bit longer, and I kind of messed up with my planning today.
No, you're fine.
Is it fine?
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
Okay, I apologize for leaving. I really like to stay. I I have a meeting here in like 10 minutes.
It's a good general question. Do we usually go till 9 or 9:30, just to planning purposes?
Well, I think because we're trying to do the, getting the strategic, we were trying to do 9, but we've
Okay.
had a lot of great discussion. I'm happy for just love all the healthy discussion this morning, so. We'll try to keep it at 9. I know you all have other commitments to do in the future, but, apologize for us going over a little bit.
No,
today.
and I'm sorry that I didn't properly plan.
Yeah.
Very nice
You're
to
fine.
meet you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
No. Wait. No,
Thank you.
guys.
Yeah.
thumbs up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Economic Development Roundtable meetings. I mean, that's kind of collective. I guess, what does that entail, or what's your envision for that, John?
I think, we put it in the strategic, that we had it in a strategic plan, just kind of, I don't know what we were thinking last time when we were looking at that, to tell you the truth.
Is
I
that
know
the
we're-
county ones? the
Maybe that's
county
the
has
county
a-
one,
has
the
a
county, that's
roundtable
probably just
meeting.
participating with,
Yeah.
the county and the state level ones. That could be just something we call out in the strategic plan to keep that connection, building with the county and state. And I think like bringing Jeff in to talk one time, and the county would be good to have to show the resources and connections there. For that there, and
I
yeah,
think it'd be a huge benefit if we were able to find another community that implemented an economic development committee that was very successful at achieving their goals, and be able to make a connection with someone from that committee to get some feedback from them on what tools they use, what things worked really well for them, where did they find unexpected resources, networking with other committees to find that little tidbit that really turn the page for them. I think there'd be a lot of helpfulness from that, so.
she's in Woodburn. Yeah, that could be Jamie could be a good one to talk with. I don't know if she's I'm sure she's probably got an EDC committee down there.
Because she
Yeah.
had been in a couple different places before that, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's done some contract work in rural communities.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like Atlanta mentioned too, we have our community partners roundtable that we
Yeah.
host monthly, happy to
Yeah.
plug in there. Rural Development Initiative, or RDI, I know the cities tapped their resources before too, would be another
Got
one that
example, yeah.
might have something for you.
Okay.
And I think, in all of our discussions today with all these points, we've kind of talked about implementation.
Yeah.
So I think everyone still has a good idea of what they're doing, and their ideas have grown today, and if not, they have been set in stone on what we want to do.
Mhm.
Workforce partnership. Talent assessment, we discussed that.
Mhm.
Yep, community college. So tourism discussion. Again, I think we already briefly talked about that one too.
Mhm.
Council
Can I add
liaison
something
update.
about
Yeah.
the tourism? It's just something that has come up in the past, but and I'm sure that it's come up to the city, but there's a lack of places to stay in the community, which is a little bit problematic for tourism. It's also makes it difficult for businesses who are having employees travel in. When we have staff come to Escondido, they generally stay in Sandy.
Yep.
Or Clackamas.
Yep.
That's quite a ways away.
So we've talked to hotels, we talked to, I think Cindy, you were on that call not that long ago. We don't have enough traffic that would warrant most hotel systems coming. So it's a little hard to bring in a hotel without having, and they need the regular business traffic. I mean, the tourism traffic is great, but it is not very sustainable. And so they need like off-season regular business traffic generally, and we don't really have enough traffic to sustain a hotel. We did years ago look at creating kind of a network of like Airbnbs as a way to kind of back that up, kind of fill in those gaps there. It didn't really take off at the time. Maybe now's the time, but yeah, that's certainly a lower hanging fruit. Easier to get somebody to rent out, their little ADU or a space in their house than it is to bring in a whole new hotel.
And the city's been proactive on that hotel front too. As part of the enterprise zone, you have the hotel designation checkbox as well. So you have an incentive in place for a hotel in the enterprise zone as well. So just waiting for the numbers to come in.
And that extends out to a zone other than M1.
That is
enterprise zone?
within your enterprise zone. So,
Oh, I thought it correlated with the M1 zone. I didn't realize it was outside of the industrial area, the enterprise zone.
no, it would not be outside the industrial area.
So would a hotel be allowed in the industrial area?
So the zoning,
Doesn't allow for it, yeah. They wouldn't, they wouldn't. be able to put a
I'd
hotel.
have to look, because I'm sure, I think that the enterprise zone overlaps into whatever is it highway commercial?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That little strip right there,
Gotcha.
I
Okay,
think,
there it
I
is.
think
All right, that's what's up.
I'd have to look at the maps, but I think it overlaps outside of in order to allow the hotels.
yeah.
Got it.
But
So-
I need, don't quote me on that. Let
Yeah.
me look at a map.
It's not designated for the 50-acre parcel that you have out there. Just kidding.
So it's only along Veterans Way there? On that one side? Is that what we're saying?
Go
Is-
look at it. I
No.
have to look at the map.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the map. I think it is along the highway,
Yeah.
but I'm not entirely sure.
Between the highway and Veterans Way?
Between the highway and the other side of the highway. So what is that, Eagle Creek?
Yeah. On the ODOT side, there, all that frontage down there.
Oh, on the,
So it's C1, I think.
It is
Highway.
outdoor commercial or highway commercial. It's not
where the
C1.
gravel pile has been on River Mill and the highway?
Yes. The gravel, I don't know about gravel pile. When you come down River Mill, the properties that line that side of the street.
Okay.
I think though, this is, something in the first year plan, you could really just look, goes back to tourism as lodging, right? Just, we know that's gonna be an issue, so, one is just listing where you could put it, so if I came in here, I'd be like, where am I gonna go? And there's no real like pathway to say, oh, I can go here. That would be helpful to be able to explain to anyone. And then the second thing I would ask is, has the city done a market study for lodging?
So 2018, 2019, somewhere around there, we started doing one and we got to the point where the company that we had hired said, we're not going to waste your money because you do not have, it's not even worth it to finish the study.
So it might be something to think about. I think the county just opened up their new tourism grant, that might be something for Estacada for us to think about is getting an updated lodging study done, because if I'm coming in as a provider,
Yeah.
whether it be it might be helpful to have that to be able to hand to someone and then be able to say, here's the locations where a hotel would fit. And, most of these, if I'm an 80 room to 100 room hotel, I'm looking for where I'm going to fit that. If I'm a Marriott or Hyatt or, something from that standpoint. So.
It's a little bit funny when we talk about not having the traffic for it and things like that. But I don't think anybody's gone and asked Brooke what their needs are, or me, what my needs are, or Michael, what his needs are. So we do these things on traffic and stuff like that, but nobody's really asked and made a list of like who, like in reality, what needs are.
Yeah, a lot of times when you're working with banks for financing on projects like that, they rely heavily on traffic studies and things like that. Just more general things that I don't think they would accept feedback from community members as much. And that's probably what they're running into is the money side. If they're bringing private equity and they're funding it themselves, they're not going to have much. They'll be able to take information like that into consideration when they're doing it. But when these large chains, they have a program that they know that if it meets all these criteria, that they're successful, and the ones that didn't meet that criteria were unsuccessful, and that typically drives it. But no, I'd love to see a nice hotel, because when my family comes in, they have to go stay in Clackamas and then at a hotel if they don't want to stay with us and travel out. So that'd be huge.
Well, and I think for tourism or even for school functions, if they're having tournaments and things,
Yeah.
and they're bringing in a lot of, hundreds of kids and families into the area, and then everybody's leaving town to go to Sandy or Clackamas to stay and have dinner and shop and that stuff.
Yeah, and one of the things we're, in the other cities that we work in, we're seeing like, hotel operators that are kind of organ operators that are looking, that have experience of running like the 40-unit hotel, right? Which is a different operator than, you know, a franchise operating the 80 to 100. But if we had that survey and we had that data, then we could go attract those, you know, McMinnville's got operators, you know, Salem's got those type of operators, right? And find those operators to come in here, because this is a great tourism destination. You've got the schools, you've got the folks coming for work or travel here for the industry, right? So I think that could be a way to think of like that step from 40 to like the next hotel when you get to like 100,000, but it starts that conversation, especially with the waterfront happening over here, you know, so.
When you talk about tourism in a hotel, say you were looking for something to do for vacation and you lived in Southern Oregon. And you're gonna come stay in a hotel in Estacada to experience tourism. What is it that you go do during the day?
Well, I think
Golf.
you,
Disc golf at MacGyver, are you like, what are the families coming out here to do? Floating the Clackamas River, Promontory Park, Mount Hood National Forest,
Going up
driving
there.
up to Timothy Lake, or out, you know, running up through the Mount Hood National Forest. All of the different, a lot of it's the campgrounds that people are coming out to experience, is most of the feedback I get for people that are coming out here. They're either doing something with the river, going to the rock or the culvert to go swimming or kayaking or stuff like that. And then mostly visiting a lot of the campgrounds. But the disc golf course, is it MacGyver? That's
Yeah, it's
like
a
the number
national.
one in the country or something? Or like, it's nationally renowned
around, yeah.
disc golf course.
Yeah.
they have a national tournament comes here
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
I mean, you really think about it, you have an opportunity, like, I hate to say it, like, you know, you think about Bend, but like really this Clackamas, you know, gateway, heart of the gateway, we keep talking like is a great brand because you have outdoor tourism, you have this, you know, the quaintness of a small town that can really attract that. It's just finding the right operator and showing them the data that they could provide if they were to come in and do something like that. So.
And riding dirt bikes and quads up at Ladue Flats, that brings a lot of traffic out there too. A lot of motorcycle riders love to ride out 224 this way. And I said on sunny days, you do something to attract, you know, bring them into town for when they're riding out there, have them stop, lunch, stuff like
Bicyclists-
that.
Bicyclists too.
Yeah,
We
did,
had a-
did
we
they
had a
still
lot of
do
people-
the run from the dam down? Did
The best damn run.
Is this
September 14th.
September 14th?
Yep.
Well, that's this week.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Don't repeat.
Yeah, but like, yeah, I mean, that's a great, but that's something to be looking at for tours. I mean, you know, those type of events draw a lot of folks out here. How do we keep them in here to come into the downtown spend, you know, but if you came in to do the run and you had a hotel, you'd spend the night and, you know.
When the Lakeshore project gets done for access to the river there, I think it'd be a great idea to have a big float event every summer, would bring a lot of people in and put it in over on this. I don't know, can you float, is there another dam? Can you put in where the Lakeshore project without? Trying to think of where that is in relation. to
And
the
float
park.
down?
And float down without hitting a dam.
No, there's a.
No, because the dam's right there.
There's a dam right there, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
never
but
mind.
you could put in up and then float down to the
Out
lakeshore
there.
and get out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do an Upper Whitewater Festival every year too,
Yeah.
up the river.
You bring up, like, I was just in Leavenworth, I don't know, probably about a month ago. And, you know, you would think in the off season, you know, there was hardly anyone there, but that river, they've done a fantastic job of having, you know, 5 or 10, you know, vans full of flow tubes, taking people up the river, bringing them back and down, keeping them in their town. And it's packed during their summer months, right? So this, I think you have the water and the outdoors here is a great destination to really market for the community here. And just how do you build that tourism component, you know, from that standpoint, so.
Right on. Any last comments? You touched on everything.
Yeah. That's so.
you.
Thank you.
All right, this meeting's adjourned at 9:31.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
You.